Hello everyone, my name's Morgan and we're back with another Learn to Draw in 1 year video. This video is for both March and April since I kind of lost track of time and here we are at the beginning of May. A part of why this happened is March's objectives really just kind of left me feeling rather defeated and I didn't want to make the video on it. But unfortunately I kind of need to. So as a way of compromise, I decided to make March and April just one big mashup video. And honestly, they're probably not going to take very long because I'm just going to talk through this as quickly as I can to just get it out of the way, get it done, and get it out. So our first objective in March was to do 30 plus 5-minute figure drawing studies, and these are what killed my enthusiasm for the rest of the month, well into April. These ones, for whatever reason, I just couldn't get the shapes that I wanted in from the figures. I think a part of me thought I should be able to get more of it shaded and that it should be more complete than my standard figures. That isn't to say that there weren't some good ones in here, because there are a couple that I picked out that I genuinely like. It isn't just finding the ones that were the most okay in this. These were ones that I don't mind showing you either way. I feel like the 5 minutes, I really thought I would get more done than I did. And that led to a lot of issues for me. You know, maybe back in college, 5 minutes, sure, I could bust out something like this, no problem, but that's been a while. And I haven't been doing these that much here recently. And so, even though I know I can do better than these, I really need to step back and look at where I'm at now and go, you know, maybe these are okay for where I'm at now. I'll get back to where I was sometime later. Trying to make these into more than what I could really hindered the process and created problems where there really shouldn't be any. I even wrote down here that I'm not really feeling these gestures today. I'm taking a short break and think I'll work smaller after that, as I like these last three the most. And one of these last three that I mentioned is one of the ones that I show you later. And as you'll see in like the April section of this video, I have 10-minute studies that I do in those instead of the 5, and they really go a lot better. And part of that probably is due to the size. Just if you make a smaller figure, you have less detail you can put in there, and you really have to worry more about your shapes and your forms that way than trying to fill up a page, which I think is what I was doing. I was trying to finish the sketchbook out so I could just show it to you guys, and it's not the prettiest sketchbook in the world to begin with, but these figures really don't help it at all. So yeah, I really struggled with these, and if I go back and watch some of the other videos that Mark Brunet has out, he was talking more about using these like in between times, like the 5-minute ones instead of like the 2-minute or the 10-minute, where 5 minutes really must be a funky time. That he's looking more at like the shape of the figure and then trying to, or not just the shape, but the shapes that make up the figure, and trying to remember those and put them down on the paper without looking back to the figure as much. So it's more of an exercise for him and building out like a mannequin and reinforcing like the building blocks of figures. Instead of trying to copy straight from the model, he's trying to reference them for like a pose and then build a character, build a figure from that. And I wish I would have looked at that video before I did these, but I could really see how that would help with imaginative drawing instead of relying, oh, okay, I'm done with this part now, I need to look back and see what else I need to do here. So moving forward, if I have these shorter gestures, I might try to do that a bit more, using the model more for pose reference rather than the entire figure reference. And I did a couple studies like these a few years ago. I'll see if I can find them. If I do, I'll put them up here for you now. But I would look at the model real quick and kind of come up with a pose that I wanted to draw anyhow, find a picture that matched that pose a bit, and then go off and try to draw it. Just a real quick look at the model and then draw it entirely by myself. And man, those first sketches were really bad, but then I would go back and draw the figure afterwards with, referencing the model and everything. And that second pass through where I'm looking at the model, obviously it's better. But doing that initial study first without looking at the model all the time, I think really helped build my understanding of the pose. Like, oh, this is what I didn't understand when I was building it from my head. Now I understand it better and I can do it better next time. And so I would like to bring doing some of those back into my studies as well. I'm not sure I have the time for it, but they were really good practice and something I suggest that you guys do as well because they really helped me out. Okay, so next up for March was to learn some basic, simple mannequins for building the body from imagination. I looked at Mark Brunet's, of course, and then I also looked at Loomis's frame. I feel like Mark's mannequin is fairly simple. I don't quite like how he builds the hip box or that cylinder for the rest of the torso. But Loomis's really helps you look at like the rhythm of the skeleton and stuff underneath, that when you're adding muscle and stuff on top, you need to understand what's underneath there, and having a simplified structure built as well as Loomis's frame is really helps you put down that foundation that you need to build proper muscle on top. I feel like I'm repeating myself a lot, but I'm just kind of talking to myself today, and I apologize. I know my voice has to sound awful right now. I have terrible allergies, and I'm just trying to muddle through this to get the video out. Hopefully the next ones won't be so bad or rushed. Videos from here on out are going to be built more on like a weekly basis, which is what I was trying to move towards in like February anyhow. It just didn't happen. But so far I'm pretty well on track for May, so that's good. I used Loomis's skeleton to build out about half a page of some just poses straight from imagination. Some of them read pretty well. There's a few of them where I tried to force the perspective a little bit, and it works well for that. But they were fun to do, and I want to eventually continue filling out this page. And then next up, we have the portrait studies. I think these were supposed to be in color and stuff. That didn't happen. I just did the 100 heads challenge instead, and that's going to be a whole another video. I'm not including it in this one. It will be the next video out after this, I hope. Those I had a decent amount of fun with. Once again, I was behind and then had to do all the work at the end, but I did finish it. Maybe that's too much of a spoiler. Moving forward to our last thing for March, I did a 2-point perspective scene. That doesn't entirely look like 2-point perspective. I'm not good at perspective. I'm pretty sure I said that before. That said, I think this drawing, painting, whatever, it's not really a painting, I guess it's a drawing, came out a lot better than if I had just tried to do it without any perspective. It probably would have looked the same if I had done it with just 1-point perspective. I tried to do an organic shape instead of doing like buildings like everybody else when they first learned 2-point perspective, and it just wasn't clicking. It was very difficult to try to fit the forms of this creature into this perspective grid I was building because I had no clue how to do that, and I didn't understand what I was doing. But even with that in mind, like I said, I think it came out really well. This is the coffee print for April, and it's my favorite one that I've done so far this year. I really enjoyed working the way I did by putting down a base of markers, and that was really just to help me establish some colors, establish a little bit of the shading that I wanted to do, and to also have a filled in background so that way I didn't have to sit there and try to scribble in every little piece of white paper that I saw with the colored pencil. I will say though that I used Illo markers to do that part, and they are not light fast at all. Like I have the first page of my sketchbook that I got from them at the same time. I used their markers to do that page, and it's almost completely gone. And we're talking about a sketchbook that is closed. It's not like I opened the page or open the sketchbook up to that page all the time and let it sit out in the sun. We're talking about a closed sketchbook that isn't like left in the sunlight or anything like that, and most of the markers is gone from that page. It's incredible how unlight fast these are. And that's a fairly typical problem with these kinds of markers. However, to that extent, I don't think I've ever seen before. It blew my mind. So when I came back to this the following day after I put the markers down, and nearly all of the purple had gone out of my purple wash that I put down, I was a little shocked, but not surprised. I did leave this sit out like where the sun could get to it, but we're literally talking a day. The change in color that you see is within a day. So don't make anything precious with these markers. They're literally for sketching and that's it. I wouldn't use them for anything you would sell or give to somebody as a gift even, because it's just going to evaporate into nothing. The pigment just does not stay at all. As far as the colored pencil part though, I really enjoyed working with that. I feel like I'm really starting to get the hang of how to use them. I'm obviously nowhere to the level of some of these people you see online or professionals who use them a lot. But for somebody who's just really kind of picked them up within the past couple of months, I'm proud of what I'm able to do with them now. You can see where I use some different lighting techniques. Like there's reflective light on the right side of the head, and there's colored pencil over those parts, but I was aware enough this time to not fill it in to the point where I couldn't take it back. And I feel like it flows naturally from one side to the other. There's a couple spots, where it got a little too dark, but not enough to disrupt and break up the flow of the piece. I did have a little trouble trying to do the highlights. The marker, the pink stayed, so it was a little darker than it needed to be. And I wasn't able to put down colored pencil that was lighter than that and have it lift up that value. It just got dark and stayed that way. So I had to change up my strategy a little bit and use orange instead of the lighter yellow goldy colors that I was trying to use. But honestly, I feel like that worked out okay. It still gives the impression of a really bright light being on this dinosaur, ahead of the storm that's coming in from behind. And I really had trouble with like the club end of the tail. I had no clue how to put that in perspective. I think it's okay. I know it could be better, but I think it's okay. And I completely lost that back leg in there somewhere. I think I intended for it to go in back of it somehow, kind of like a dog splooting. But you can't tell that was my intention at all. It just kind of looks like maybe it's under the belly, maybe it's under the club, but I feel like if it's under the club, that it should be sticking out somewhere, and it's not. Like the purples and dark blues, I think they went down very well. There's some spots where, the form of the dinosaur starts to be lost in the field of flowers, and that's like a very intentional thing that I did to soften the form, since, with that much light landing on the one side, the figure's going to be lost in shadow pretty easily on the other side. Now, the storm clouds, I do like how they turned out, but I did intend to have like lightning coursing through them. And while I could have probably went in with like wash or maybe a Sakura jelly roll, I decided to just leave it as it was. I felt like if I went in with the gouache or the jelly roll, that I had more chances of messing it up than just being okay with not having the lightning in there. I do feel like the field and the lightning could have been blended a little better, and a large reason why it didn't blend so well was because of the marker I put down. There was just not enough Not enough blending between the lavender and the dark gray that I used. As far as the field of flowers go, they could have been done way better. But they weren't the point of the piece. They're just suggestions of what's there. And as far as that goes, that's fine. I did try to get them to go back to the vanishing points on either side, and I feel like that's somewhat successful. Once again, I didn't know what I was doing with perspective. I was just winging it for the most part, and you don't really wing perspective. It's something you need a plan for. But overall, like I said, I really like this piece. I think it's kind of a symbol of what's to come, and I hope you guys enjoy it as well. So next up, we have the stuff I did for April. So one of the first things I did was some of these little sculptures in polymer clay. And I am not good at anything 3D. I'll be the first to admit it. I never have been. I dreaded it when it came up in school. It was not my favorite thing at all. I did really enjoy doing these though. So I only took footage of sculpting the planes of the Loomis head, and I struggled a lot with this one just because I was learning how to use the medium and doing something slightly difficult. It's not like a flat charm thing that I'm cutting out or whatever. I'm actually trying to build a head while not knowing how to use this clay. So my biggest problem was I made the aluminum ball that goes inside of the head so it's not so thick. That was a little too big, and I kept cutting off the sides of the head into the aluminum. You can still see it a little bit now that I'm done with it. And then just finding the center lines on the ball was really hard because, I don't know, I'm not used to working in 3D, like I said. So my center lines were all off a little bit, in some way or another. And I had to keep going back in and correcting them. And I really made them too deep on my initial passes. So even though I corrected those lines, a lot of the older ones are still phantomed into the finished sculpture. For the planes of the head and for the skull, I used a couple of Proco videos that I'll try to remember to link below. And they really helped. I felt that there could have been a little more. Some parts of the video felt like draw the circle, now draw the rest of the owl. But I understand that these are like the free versions of their actual classes, so not everything's going to be there in the most instructional way. But they were still very, very helpful. So if this is something that you're wanting to possibly do, then these are good resources to at least get you started. I've already used the planes head to kind of get some lighting reference down for some character portraits that I was working on. So it was really nice to be able to do that. And that's one of the reasons I was really excited to get the chance to work on something like this, because I knew I could use it in other facets of my art. As for the rest of the clay, I do intend to make some charms. I might rebuild some of these heads a little bit later when I feel a little more comfortable with it. I'm proud of what I made, and I'm glad that I can use them for other stuff. So next up was the anatomy of the upper body with respect to bones and muscle. So I didn't do any of this on camera. I apologize. I did it during some downtime I had at work. But essentially, I started off trying to use the Skelly app from Proco, and you can see it on the upper left, the skeleton, that was from Skelly. The rest of this is from an app called Atlas. It's more of a medical breakdown of the body. I feel like for me, it works a lot better. I like knowing all these little details, and being able to like hide something or show it lets me see how the body is built up from beneath, or just see how the body is built in an unstylized way. So moving on from this, I was also supposed to look into some color theory basics, but I already know those, and it didn't seem worth my time to try to just sit here and learn them again for the video. If you guys want something more in depth on that, I can try to do that for you. But for the purpose of learning art, I already know it. I don't need to learn it again just for a YouTube video. So now we're going to move on to the gesture drawings for this video. And this time around, it was 10 poses at 10 minutes. And these went so much better. I felt like I really had time to get the shapes in there that I wanted, as well as start putting in some details. Now, these aren't like completed by any means, but you really kind of get a sense of, okay, this is what this person looked like. I was able to focus on like weight and balance this time around. And overall, they just left me with such a much better feeling than the 5-minute gestures. And once again, I was only able to record one of these because I did the rest during downtime at work. But they all followed pretty much the same process where I tried to get the basic shapes down from like all the mannequins first, you know, your head, your ribs, the pelvis. And then I started building out with cylinder-esque shapes. I kind of like to build in with the calf muscle and everything first. But cylinder-esque shapes for the appendages, and then I put in like a block for the hand and then like an arc for where the fingers and stuff will be. And after I'm okay with how the proportions and stuff look for that, I start looking for like where muscles and stuff are. Or like the kneecap was something I focused on for a lot of these. Like, what does the back of the knee look like? What does the front of the knee look like? How is this calf? You know, is it tense? Is it kind of loose? Where are the ankles? What are my fingers doing? You know, are they bent? And then I would put in the clothing because the clothing helps show the roundness of the body. And if I had time, then I would go in and do the face and the hair, stuff like that. I tried to learn from my lesson from last time and not go straight into shading. That's really something I only did if I had a lot of time left over. Which, there's a couple of these I did some shading on, but not nearly as much as I tried to do last time. I mean, the first couple of them were maybe a little rough, but I feel overall the quality of these are pretty consistent. And getting to a point where I'm consistent with my art is something that is very important to me. You know, some days I'm able to draw or paint this really amazing thing, and then the next day I can't draw at all. And that's something that really bothers me. Because how am I supposed to put up commissions when even I don't know what the quality is going to be day to day myself? How am I supposed to feel okay other people entrusting me that, oh, if I get something from her, it's going to look like this other art she's done, and that might not be the case. Now, obviously, if I'm doing commissions, I'm not going to hand you a pile of crap, but that's just something I'm working through internally because it's important to me that people get what they believe they should be getting from me. And so seeing the consistency in these studies is really encouraging. There's like 4 of them are the same person, and I mean, the likeness isn't exactly there. There's a couple of them where she looks similar, but these are gesture studies. That's not really the point. And that pretty much wraps up April. I did want to sit here and talk about my goals for the first quarter of the year, which has been well done and passed for a month and a half now, but that's fine. So for my first quarter of the year, I wanted to do, I guess my goal was just to get February stuff done before quarter 2, which I did. So awesome. And then one of the things I haven't shown with these videos is writing a comic. I guess I've talked about it a little bit. And my goal was to get some outlining of Act 1 done before quarter 2, which did I do that? I think it was still in March, so I think I did accomplish that. I'm still working on the outline. I started going into some scripting, but I'm not really sure what to do for the middle of the story. I really know what the first part is and what the last part is. It's always an issue for me to get that middle part done. So I'm still working on that. As far as YouTube goes, my goal was 6 videos, but I'm okay with it, was 4 videos before quarter 2, and I did do that. I'm kind of surprised with myself. I thought I really failed on those fronts, but I guess allowing myself some leniency, I did do okay. I did the minimum that I was looking for. Obviously, it would have been nice to go, oh, I did all this perfectly, but it's nice to know I wasn't expecting perfect from myself to begin with. And that's something I've been working hard on too, because I am quite the perfectionist. I want everything a certain way. I want to show people certain things. And to be able to loosen up my expectations for myself is wonderful. I know I get on here and talk negatively about myself a lot, or rather my art, not so much myself, but my art and maybe my time management skills. But it has been rather up and down working through all of this, but I can only do what I can do. Sounds obvious, but it's true. I have other stuff that I'm doing, like learning Japanese, working outside of this. I would love to be able to stay home and do art all day, but I can't do that. And so being a little lenient on this thing that right now isn't supporting me at all is probably for the best. As far as some other cool things, you know, I broke 300 subscribers, which I know for a lot of people is a very low number, but for me it's something. I also got my first member on Coffee and my first support over there as well. It would be nice to maybe sell something from my shop, but you know, I'm not very good at social media or putting myself out there, so I think that might be something I need to focus on for this quarter that we're halfway through. So I'm not sure how well that will go. Maybe if I can sell just the one thing, I can call it a success. But I guess that's where I'm at right now. So, yeah, thank you everyone for continuing to watch these videos. This one's probably pretty scatterbrained. I just didn't have time to sit here and try to script out a video and then record it and edit it. So we're freeballing with this voiceover right now. I'm sorry because the quality has to be awful with my stuffiness and my throat is so scratchy, but that's the way it is. So thank you guys for watching. Head on over to my Coffee, see what's going on with me over there in the meantime between videos. Maybe buy something from my shop. You know, I got stickers over there, some wallpapers, a couple little prints in there, maybe some originals, I'm not sure. I should probably put those up though. Take care. I'll see you guys next time.